All right, we're here in the animal science class in our face-to-face session at Portage this morning. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been working on in AgPlan and sections about that. So this is Fountain Prairie Education Farm. That's where we're going to be, well, we don't call it, it's still Fountain Prairie Farm, I guess. But this is the farm that we're going to be teaching from. John Prisky, who is a co-instructor in this course, and will be coming in more and more into both the online and face-to-face course. This is he and his wife Dorothy's farm in Fall River, Wisconsin, just outside of Columbus. And the picture here is actually with Angus cattle. That's what they've had on the farm for the last winter or last fall into winter, and then are coming back out this spring, so that's what we'll get to see when we're out there. John and Dorothy, when they were actively producing raised Scottish Highland cattle, they have a handful left still, so we'll get to see them as well, and that'd be the ones that will probably do the hands-on work with, but we'll get a chance to see how they laid out their farm. And in the animal science course, the section that we've been working in AgPlan is this operations part. And I guess for me, what I want you all to do in this class is to be able to come up with a management plan for your animals. The books have some guidelines on things to think about as you expand out. Most of you have done a decent start and have an outline of that. I would put that in the operations section. That's, if you look at the sections here, each one kind of breaks on each other, so the operations session would probably just be, you could even do this as bullet points if you want, and then expand on that. But what exactly are the animals that you're doing and how do you manage them is what I would put in the operations. For those that are in the products part, that gets to what exactly are you doing. So if you're raising beef cattle, this is where I would put in. I raise 50 beef cattle on 50 acres of land. We do it in managed grazing. You'll see that as I pull this out of this class, we'll build this in Fountain Prairie Farm for you to see as a model for what we're doing out there and what we're going to work towards. So over time, we'll build the model, and then you can see how I do it and how I think about it. Ultimately, this is your plan, so I guess that's one of the things that I love about my program in general and all of the courses, this course in particular. This is really about you, and what I'm showing you here in AgPlan is a tool that you can write about and keep track of that and build. Hopefully you'll take that with you and see the value in it as you go down the road. If you go through the whole program and work in each one of the 4 courses, we will build out a full business plan for you, or you will build out a full business plan for you. It may be something that's a sketch right now if you're still at the dreaming about it stage. Those that are actively producing, it'll be a little more detailed. But here's the big part. A number of you have talked about, I need to go to the bank and get finance to purchase land or expand, or want to take this to mom and dad because I'm ready to move into the next aspect of how I take over as the next generation. This plan is how you do that. Hopefully you use it and see it as more of a tool to guide you through your whole career. That's the way I try to look at it. That's what I hope, why I use this tool. It's something that's, you could go buy a other planning tool, but this is nice because it's free and it's something that's yours. You can log into it from any computer, anywhere that has an internet connection. I've done a little bit of work on my phone, but I don't have a great phone. But if you have a good, high quality smartphone, you can work on it from your phone or a tablet or wherever. It doesn't do well with Apple products. That's one issue. So if you're an Apple user, not such a good thing. They're more of a based in the PC world. So that's the one downside at the moment. But it is a nice tool. You can see how I did this with the Fountain Prairie Farm and our products. I have a little paragraph at the top, just a couple sentences, and then I broke out what is each section, what are we trying to do. Probably could do that as a bullet point. For me, this works. However, the formatting is up to you now. I'm sure most of you didn't sign up for this class to be a writing class. And I'm sorry that that's the case, but sometimes we do have to do this to get our records and build it up. So I broke down each aspect of what we're trying to do and think about on the farm as it moves from a production farm into a teaching farm. That's what our products are. Some people will have services, some won't. If you do custom raising, custom harvesting, that kind of aspect, that would go into the services. That would be a place to expand on it. If you're just doing your particular animal as a product and that's your farm, that's fine too, and you wouldn't have services. And in fact, you can turn that off and we'll show you that. If I can figure out how to do it right away, we can show you that in a minute. One thing for those who are in both classes you saw last week is I make mistakes too. Don't worry about that. It happens all the time. I don't expect you to learn computer programming in here, but this is, I think, a pretty useful tool to get through. Production system, this is another place. Sometimes these sections end up sort of being a little bit of duplicative. So in that operations, you might spell out that I have 100 beef head, whatever breed that you're working in. In the products, it's probably also going to spell out that you have 100 beef head, and you might expand on that a little bit. Some we sell direct to equity market, and half we hold back and sell as direct market in cutlets and specialized products. Then in the production system, you're probably mentioned again, I have 100 head of beef. I raise these in managed grazing, or we have a confinement feedlot and we raise 1,000 acres of corn, soybeans, and hay that we use as our feeding system. Whatever that is, that would be more of your production system. This is the animal science part of the course, so we'll focus. You don't have to go into great detail on your cropping systems, but you might want to mention how you feed your animals, because that's a big part, as a lot of people have noted. That's a big part of animal management is proper nutrition and handling. Customer service, well, you might not have a section of this if you're doing more of the commodity work, but if you're doing direct sales, customer service is a big part of that, so you might start thinking about that. Each one of these we're going to expand on all semester, so don't worry about getting it right away up front. You're going to work on this throughout this semester. What I really hope to see may not be a total finished product, but just make an effort and see where you can get to from start to finish, so that you have something that you feel comfortable coming back to this when I'm not here to talk about it and be the person, or John to be the person to guide you through or talk about ideas as you go. That's a nice part about this. One side note, I guess, with the comments section, you made me a reviewer already. I'm going to ask you to do the same for John as he comes on. As you go away from the class and if you choose to use this tool, John's going to talk a bit about how they developed their management team. John and Dorothy own their farm independently. They were out there, but they didn't run it independently. They had a whole team of people that came in to help them think about how to go through the day-to-day, like a veterinarian, their accountants, and their bankers, and a nutritionist, and a soils and crop person. That was their management team. You can ask some of those folks to maybe be a reviewer on this tool, and that could be a way to get feedback from them throughout the year. Particularly, I'm thinking in animal management, maybe you want your nutritionist in here, thinking about looking at the different spots, and that'd be a way for you to communicate when they're not on the farm with you. It's a possibility, something to think about. It's not going to make, if you choose not to, that's fine too. Inventory management, everybody is going to have some aspect of inventory management. I'm looking at my dairymen over here, so how many calves do you have a year? How do you bring new cows into the herd how do you bring heifers into the cow herd? How do you deal with the steers? How do you, that's your inventory management for this animal science class. As you build out, inventory management, again, will be also include, your feedstuffs that you grow and how you manage that too. If you are already an active farm, you might have some of the things to put in as licenses. I believe every dairy farm has to have a license to sell milk, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that would be one thing to mention here. If you're a dairy farm, you may have a nutrient management, or beef farm too, you may have a nutrient management plan in place. That might be something to touch on here. That's part of your animal management system. Patents and trademarks, well, that's a pretty specialized system. We talked a little bit about the risk management. A lot of people for risk management, that goes right to insurance, and that's a big part of it, insuring ourselves and making sure that we can have protections against any kind of thing is a big part of risk management. There's also some of these other areas that it talks about in risk management too. And some of that gets into some of your financial management, thinking about how do we protect ourselves against down markets. Markets change frequently in agriculture, and that's part of what I would consider a good overall risk management plan. Environmental issues, the big one in animal science, animal management part of things is nutrient management, right? That's a big, what do we do with our manure to properly use it so we don't have issues? That'll change depending on how you manage your animals, but that's probably one of the big areas that you'll want to think about in the environmental issues. If you have others, some farms are going to be closer to water resources, some farms are going to have more, if you store chemicals, for example, if you're doing your own application and you have a storage area, that's an environmental issue that you have to deal with. And where do we store these? How do we have the quality control part is, as I started to talk about, this is, we're going to talk more about this through the semester, but having protocols in place of how you do what you do, that's what I would put in here. It's like, this is what I want to see. This is what I think of as a finished beef. This is how I get there. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm talking about quality control part of this. And that's where we start to think about what are the records that we need to keep to help us do that and build out a record keeping system that really won't be part of AgPlan necessarily. You can do that if you link it in. If you use an Excel spreadsheet, for example, you could link that into the plan and store it in here too. But that's what I'm thinking of with the quality control part. How do you do what you do? Make sense? Implementation timeline is probably would depend on where you're at. So you're thinking about taking over mom and dad's, maybe you kind of put that into 10 years, I want to be fully in ownership, and here's the steps to get there in between. If you're still looking at when do I look at and buy land to start my beef cow operation or whatever that is, you can do that as an implementation time to here. Probably, not something that that's more for you than for me. So for as far as a class, if you kind of have an idea where you want it, I will go ahead and do that. If you have questions about it, put it out there and I can provide my thoughts on it. I'll be glad to talk to you offline about it too. But that's where we're at right now. We'll also get into some of these other areas, the marketing plan, possibly in the management organization. Again, we'll see this. Might be able to copy and paste some of these sections right into each other and build it out. So one of the things as a writer, when I'm in a writing project, which just ends up turning out to be, if I hit a wall and I can't think of something to do, I do what I know I can do. So you know certain aspects of this plan right now today, and you can just bullet point them out, or what your dream is. So you can just bullet point them out, and then come back and fill in the details later. That's the whole idea of working on this over the whole semester. So there's really no stress at the end of the semester to finish this project so Randy can grade it so I can get my grade, because he'll have shown across the course of the semester the progress towards it. And that comes back to another thing for me. I have to give you a grade. That's sort of my responsibility as an instructor. But what I really want you to do is build a confidence from where you are today to take this and start making your dream a reality, wherever it is. And that's the goal of my class. That's what we have kind of a lot of competencies that I mentioned. We probably won't master all of them in here, but you're going to touch on them a little bit and kind of see these are the things. John will talk about it too. That's the things I do every day as a farmer for 30 years. And how do we get you to that point where you're living out your dream? That's my goal. I really think I value what you're doing, and I want to help you get there. And so I don't care if you all get A's. I'd give you all A's. I just want the effort is what we do is don't worry about the grade. Let's think about this as an opportunity to live out your dreams. And this in a lot of ways is different than I think a lot of other classes that you might have in college. This is hopefully directly related to your dreams and your career. All right. Well, we'll be back again. If you have any questions, by all means, email me. Give me a call. My office phone, actually, if you call that, it sends me an email, so that you're doing both if you want to do that. My office hours are posted, so if you're around Truex on Monday afternoons, you can feel free to stop by. Fridays, days that I'm in Portage, Friday afternoons, feel free to stop by, or we can set up an appointment outside of that.